Welcome to the Ecommerce Marketing Podcast, the highly rated digital marketing podcast that provides weekly digital marketing tips and strategies from some of the world's top digital marketers and e-commerce entrepreneurs that will help you take your digital marketing to the next level. Sit back and enjoy this power-packed episode hosted by Arlen Robinson, who is an e-commerce entrepreneur and digital marketing expert with over 20 years of experience. Hey, e-commerce marketing podcast listener. Are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own affiliate program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Now get ready to hear from your e-commerce marketing expert of the week as they drill down to give you details on marketing strategies that can help grow your business.
Welcome back to the E-commerce Marketing Podcast, everyone. My name is Arlen Robinson, and I am your host. And today we have a very special guest, Evan Padgett, who is an e-commerce and subscription commerce executive with 20 years of experience. Currently as a COO of Stealth Venture Labs, which is an e-commerce marketing firm, he works with brands like Crocs, HelloFresh, Factor 75, and MUD WTR. Welcome to the podcast, Evan.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, and I'm excited to have you. You know, we're really going to be diving deep into what's your bread and butter that you've kind of been 20 years, immersed in, which is subscription commerce, which is, I know it's a lot different than it was 20 years ago. It's exploded. And you're going to enlighten us a little bit about how that is. And then if any e-commerce business can implement a subscription service or offering if it makes sense for them. But before we get into all that, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into what you're doing today?
Sounds good. Yeah. I've been doing this for 20 years. I jumped in as a kid growing up. I was always fascinated with tech. So if I go rewind it back to the 90s, when the internet came to be, 2400 baud modem, building websites with Notepad and just freehanding it. I was like, this is really great as a teenager, learning about all this. Applied that to a company I joined up when I was 20 years old out of Los Angeles as a kid from Oregon. Jumped over there and just learned about how to do digital advertising. Okay. That company I worked for, we spent a lot of time doing negative option continuity, so subscription, but probably not subscription that you see today. A lot of stuff that free trial leading into a subscription, then a little bit less desirable. But I got to see that change over time. So then I just kind of grew with these people, awesome mentors, jumped to another company that we started that ended up becoming now known as Textile Fashion Group, a huge house of women's fashion brands such as Fabletics and Savage X and Just Fab. Ran a couple of companies there for a period of time. Jumped to Thrive Market after working with those other guys for about 15 years and learned a ton. Jumped to Thrive Market as our chief marketing officer, helping build that company up, getting a focus on direct-to-consumer acquisition, bringing in new members, and that's a different kind of subscription model, sort of a Costco meets Whole Foods type business with an annual membership. Then about 4 years ago, met my business partner here at Stealth, and now I jumped into the service provider world, providing our service, my knowledge, and our team's collective knowledge on how to advertise and grow e-commerce businesses, but with a real strong emphasis on subscription, not just because a lot of businesses are subscription these days, but I do believe that subscription commerce companies can really truly scale and harness direct-to-consumer advertising stronger than a traditional e-commerce company, that is, from a budget perspective.
Yeah, true indeed. Yes, well, thank you for sharing that background. Definitely seems like you've kind of had your hands in quite a bit over the past 20 years. I know you've been really busy for sure, which is great. You know, the whole internet e-commerce world is it really has grown a lot. It is constantly changing, and you and I both know it. It keeps us on our toes.
At all times.
Yeah, for sure. We got to constantly kind of duck with the changes and keep everything moving. But yeah, it's exciting. But as I mentioned at the top of the episode, of course, we're going to be talking about subscription commerce. And before we dive into it, why don't you tell us what is subscription commerce? And, is it right for any direct-to-consumer e-commerce business?
Yeah, I think so. So subscription commerce, as I see it, another maybe more appropriate way to talk about it is creating a monthly or annually recurring revenue type business, right? So Subscription commerce isn't, I don't want people to think, oh, subscription commerce, I'm putting stuff in a box and just sending it over. Right. Not really how I want people to think of subscription commerce. Subscription commerce is maintaining and building an authentic relationship through your product and offering to consumers. So that can be, that can be stuff in a box. That could be a service that you provide on your core products. So say warranty or guarantee or white glove type service programs. That could just be creating consumable products versus tangible products. Like, you have clothing subscription outfits, you have food and meal at home subscriptions. But in the end of the day, the root of it is, how do you create a recurring revenue model that engages your customer base, makes you, a part of their lives, and will allow them to want to keep buying from you, tell their friends about you, and now you become sort of a service that releases the gravity of people's life, and you got to provide a service that makes their life easier or better, or ideally both.
Yeah. I like that concise answer. Really makes sense. One of the things that you pointed out though is that when you're thinking about doing this as an e-commerce business, you want to think of it, in the eye. You got to kind of put on a different set of shoes. You got to put them in the shoes of your customer, your typical customer, and what you're thinking about with that offering, whether it's a recurring service offering, extended support, warranty support, whether it's refreshing your product every month automatically. Is it something that would make sense for them? Or even is it things that your customers have asked for? What I see a lot of what's powerful these days is all of this data that we're collecting. Whether you have, maybe you're doing surveys, maybe your customer support people are talking to people, they're taking notes from their dealing with customers. You're going to get a lot of input already. And so you're going to already kind of get an idea of what are some of the things that your customers want. And I think that's really what's going to drive where you go with this. I don't think it's something that you just kind of stick your hand out of the window and see where the wind is blowing,
Exactly.
Then decide, I think we're going to throw a bunch of items in a box. We'll just call this a monthly bonus kit, and then charge $20.
Yeah, that doesn't really fly anymore. I mean, you really got to, your product, whatever it may be, nobody builds an like, just even rolling it back, take subscription commerce out of the equation.
Yeah.
You don't build an e-commerce store to sell a product to a customer one time. Now, your subscription may not need to be monthly. Maybe it's quarterly. Maybe it's even semi-annually, or it could be annually, but you don't sit there and build and create a physical consumer package good that you only want to sell to customers one time. Right. So when you think about that, you think about the things that people would want, and especially in a consumable product. So say makeup or beauty or fashion, fashion type products or things you could eat, meal at home companies, obviously a massive vertical in subscription. When you put that all together, it's like, what if you're thinking about an e-commerce business, you're already thinking about how to sell to customers and have repeat customers. All a subscription does is cater their need to what you can provide. And then when you figure out that equation, your business becomes more predictable. Your business becomes attractive to venture capitalists or acquisition opportunities to acquire your company, because everybody's looking for that recurring revenue, annual recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue, because you could set your clock to that sort of stuff and you could buy inventory correctly. It's so smooth when you get it right. I'm not saying it's not a challenge, but I'm saying that when you nail it, it's a great product for your customers. It's a great product for you. Operationally, you'll be better for it, and it'll bring out the best in any sort of e-commerce business.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, one of the big upside, of course, is that cash flow, that recurring revenue. And, that's what everyone wants. And I think that's why when I mentioned, so many people are jumping into it. Some may be prepared. It may be appropriate for some businesses, but some may not be. They just are looking at that end goal, which is the recurring revenue. But, you do have to see that it makes sense for you. Now, with all of this and this whole influx of companies offering these subscription offerings, it seems great from looking at the outside in, but is there any downside to offering this?
Absolutely. So, and the downsides are, I would say broadly speaking, is lack of preparation.
Okay.
And I'll go into that in a second. And then I also think that, I have my opinions on certain things that I don't think should be a subscription. You start, we're seeing more and more about, say, for example, electric cars or cars that have features that are subscription only. There's things like that I have strong negative opinions about that we won't get into today. So don't force a subscription where it doesn't need to be. But the things you need to think about with a subscription, one, broadly speaking, when it comes to a planning perspective, this all kind of think about it as preparation. Mm-hmm. It takes more work. And what I mean by that is you're building a relationship with a customer. When you're an e-commerce store, you just want to get customers in. You usually get them back again over email. You're not paying for advertising usually unless they've sort of lapsed, like say 180 days. Mm-hmm. So you have you're just saying, hey, we have a sale going on, or hey, and they kind of casually walk back into your store whenever they feel like it. You're sitting at 1.2 to 1.4 purchases a year for many e-commerce companies. Right. And you're not really having to build a relationship. With a subscription, you sort of have to continuously sort of best yourself month over month as far as the effort you put into the company you're a part of. And that, what I mean by that is, when you're sending out emails, like you have to do a certain amount of emails that are trying to sell and upsell and generate more revenue, and a certain amount talking about yourself as a brand, because subscriptions are an ongoing relationship. I don't like to think of it as, oh, I'm just got you on the hook and I'm going to bill you every month. It's an ongoing relationship. And as any relationship advice, and I'm not an expert on that necessarily, you got to put effort into that. And you got to have you got to listen to your customers. You got to respond. And you got to continuously improve your product over time. A real small case study in that is a lot of times subscription companies start trying to find ways to squeak out a little bit extra margin, and the quality of their product maybe dips a little bit over time. Maybe you see a meal at home company where now you're getting orders where the seal on the meal or something has broken now a few times. And I live in Colorado. I live in higher altitude. So sometimes when they pack at sea level, there's expansion of like the gas that's in there. So then like sometimes the seals pop in it. You start to notice those things. And then all it takes is a few of those. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden you're not going to want to be part of that business anymore. So there's that piece. It takes more work. You have to really have intention on driving a relationship. Mm-hmm. Another one, and this is probably the biggest one, cash flow and investing into that engine. So subscription is beautiful because you typically buy customers, especially when as a marketer, you acquire customers at a break even or deficit even, and you're looking to make your money back. An average sort of, from my experience, sort of seeing behind hundreds of businesses now, you're looking at about call it 3-month media payback period. And what I mean by that is that's where the time it's going to take you to get the money back on the advertising customer acquisition cost that you put into it. Mm-hmm. So one thing that this is what trips people up, because you're investing into that sort of forward-looking revenue. You have a situation where as an operator, you can get way ahead of yourself because here's a good example. Say you're spending $50,000 a month on advertising, right? Mm-hmm. Broadly speaking, 3-month media payback period means you have $150,000 in working capital in your marketing engine to kind of keep it going, right?
Right.
Well, what happens to subscription over time? You get to a point where the curve sort of flattens out on your new customer growth because people leave your subscription, people come in. You get to a point where it flattens out. So then you're saying, okay, well, let's up our marketing spend. We got some cash now. So say you start spending $100,000 a month on advertising. Well, now you're stuck with a situation where you need $300,000 instead of $150,000 in media to support your marketing engine. But maybe your CACs go up too. And now all of a sudden that media payback period is like 4 months. Mm-hmm. Boom. You go from $150,000 in working capital to $400,000 in working capital. And then also, guess what? You're growing. Maybe you need another customer service agent. Maybe you need someone to help on procurement and fulfillment. Your costs go up. And the beauty of subscription commerce is that you can plan it. The downside is if you're not looking at all the variables, you can be caught in a situation where you're using and spending more capital than you can afford. Mm-hmm. And then, like, this is a cataclysmic type scenario, but then it's kind of a house of cards because all of a sudden you can't pay your vendors for your product, and then your product shows up late, and then you're shipping it out late, and then more people are canceling, so you're not getting that revenue, and you overbought product, and oh my gosh, now you're trying to seek like bridge capital. So that's like the biggest downfall, but it's also like the biggest upside with subscriptions, you can plan for it. The biggest downfall is if you're not planning for it, you could get caught in a really disadvantageous position with your company capital, and lead you to go out and either regress as a business and really have to slow things down and then take a few steps back, or seek capital under distress, and that's going to be sort of giving away more of the company at less terms than you like if you're raising money or bridge funding, and none of those are a great, comfortable position to be in. So that's probably what I see as the biggest downfall.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What I also see with it, aside from, all of those things that kind of can compound if you're not prepared, and that's kind of the key thing, is that if you're not ready, if you have all of these customers, or you're getting these customers in the subscription model, and maybe you're not prepared, you don't quite have all the inventory, you got people waiting, it also can help hurt your company's reputation. And that's
in a big way.
That's a big thing. Yeah. And if you start to get bad reviews on social media or your Google reviews, all of that can really hurt
the BBB. Google, Trustpilot, all those places, like that could set you back months, if not years, of reputation that you have to rebuild. And it's so easy to do, because look, you're just sitting there, you're like, oh my gosh, we're seeing tailwinds in customer acquisition costs. My CAC is so low right now, I could double my media spend, and we're getting a bunch of new customers. And you're like, all right, all this revenue is coming in, but all it takes is something that's outside of your control, even as well. Like, hey, my stuff on a boat, it's stuck in the harbor for an extra month, so we can't fulfill this month's box. And guess what? All that revenue goes bye-bye, and your reputation goes bye-bye with it. So you really have to resist the urge to grow aggressively without preparing and having contingency plans. And that's the balance. But if you can do that, and that's a part of subscription commerce, you can do that, then you're looking at, okay, who do I need to hire? What happens if I don't get this inventory? Who's my backup supplier? What do I like? Can we get these customers later? Like, don't get too far ahead, and you can end up putting yourself in a real bad spot.
Yeah, for sure. Now, if let's say a company takes heed to all of this advice, they do their proper planning, they feel that they're ready, they've queried their customer base, and they feel, okay, we've got a solid customer subscription model, and we think it's a subscription commerce model. We think it makes sense. We've seen our competitors are doing it. We're going to go into it. Now, if they decide to go that route, from a technical standpoint, what are some things that need to be in place for a brand to effectively have a subscription commerce offering?
Yeah. So, most out of the box, I'm assuming these days, most people aren't building from scratch their own e-commerce platform, right? So you have Shopify and Recharge as a strong combination from what I've seen for most subscriptions. Now, there's a handful of different subscription plugins. Recharge covers a lot. You have Bold, you have ChargeBee, you have a handful of others. Depending on the complexity of your subscription, you kind of need to vet subscription platforms, but those subscription platforms are necessary. If you are highly technically inclined, say you're a CTO founder or co-founder type situation, or a technical architect in your pocket, you can use Shopify's subscription API to sort of build your own subscription app, which, if you can afford it, has a lot of benefits for flexibility for designing subscription your way. But you do need a subscription engine. So Shopify doesn't do that by itself out of the gate. If I use Shopify as an example, and then you have like CreateJoy, which has subscription on top of it. You have WooCommerce as part of WordPress. You could use that as well. So you need to pick a platform. My personal opinion, going vertical on Shopify is smart. A lot of companies do it. It works really well. It's easiest to set up in my experience. Yeah. So you need that. You need to design your subscription. And when I say design your subscription, you need to be looking at, am I a monthly subscription or a quarterly subscription? Do I have options in my subscription? Like, do you get 2 packs every month? Do you get 2 packs every 2 weeks? Do you get 4 packs a month? Can people modify that? You have to just think about what people would want to change, but not too many options, because you create a matrix of, oh, do I want a 1-pack, 2-pack, 3-pack? Do I want it on 30, 60, 90, 180 days? All these sorts of, you create this matrix of different options and people just sort of be like, I don't know right now how much I need. Just give me the stuff. Right. You can create resistance there. Yeah. Another thing you need to do, this is probably sort of the hidden upside, is looking at your email and sort of CRM platform. Say you're on Klaviyo or whatever tech you're on. Mm-hmm. I always suggest creating a lead nurture series to get customers when people give you their email and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But also a new customer onboarding email series that's usually about 5 to 7 emails deep that says, hey, thank you for joining. Here's a little bit about us. Here's what you're contributing to. If you have a social cost behind, welcoming them into the brand, nurturing them through their first order so they know what to expect. Like, hey, you're going to get an email in the next 48 hours. It's going to have the shipping information on it. And that first shipping email comes and it looks great. It's like, hey, you're getting them excited about the product they're going to get. It should be delivered on this date. If you have any problems, let us know. And then when they get it, when it actually, you get the scan that it was delivered, send another email a day later, say like, hey, we're hoping everything went smooth with your delivery. Do you have any questions about the product? Get back to us. Then also check in with them about 2 weeks after their product was delivered. And actually, we typically recommend doing like a questionnaire about your product. So get a little bit of customer information depending on what your product is. Usually about 2 weeks out, say, if you're a fashion company, hey, how did the clothes fit? Did everything come in good quality? Do you like the products that you got? Is there something you would have done differently? And listen to that stuff. And you will get a ton of engagement on that series because you're not calling people up every day. And if you have SMS, you have a phone number, even better. SMS is huge these days, but you want to just have these touch points with the consumer as you're onboarding them on that first order to make sure that they're hyped about the product still, to let them know that you got their back if they're having any issues, because that's always what the barrier for entry for most people on anything e-commerce or subscription commerce. I'm not sure I'm going to like it. I'm not sure what to do if I don't like it. So you gotta support them all the way through and then listen to their feedback and adjust your product if necessary. So that's another thing I always recommend people do. And then last piece is honestly just be ready to iterate and evolve, because chances are when you come out of the gate with a subscription, it may not immediately be the best thing ever. You may see price resistance. You may see, I don't really need this every month. You got to like sort of weed out one noisy customer saying they don't need it every month when you have 95 other customers that are like, oh yeah, I definitely need this every month. So you got to listen, but you also got to understand that a subscription is not for everybody, and evolve your product over time.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's some great advice. Going back to the platform, I'm also a huge advocate of Shopify. I think a great platform, like you said, if you want to go vertical with Shopify. If you have just a regular store, you want to add the subscription commerce, you can do that with some of the apps in their app store. Like you said, Recharge, Bold, definitely some great apps. I'm familiar with both of those. And so, yeah, I think that's a solid route to go. And, if you're on another platform these days, that's the beauty of it. A lot of these e-commerce platforms like the Shopify's, the BigCommerce, the Equid e-commerce, even Wix now, they all have app stores, so you can easily tie in these subscription systems into your store. There's kind of like plug and play these days. It's not that difficult. You don't really need a developer to manage. Yeah,
you absolutely don't. That's a key point. You don't need a developer. I would recommend to anybody thinking about getting a subscription, talk to peers or other people in this space and figure out which tech is right for you, because I have seen, I'm not going to talk bad about any specific tech here, but I have seen situations where brands have outgrown the technology stack that they are on for different reasons. Either the service isn't quite there, or the subscription changes and the tech platform can't really accommodate. So then they have to migrate, and we see a lot of migrations too. I'll just use, for example, to Shopify, but that there is going to be a not insignificant cost to do that. And the bigger you are, the more expensive that cost is. So just make sure that the platform that you're on is pretty future-proof as far out as you can see. I won't hide my fandom for Shopify, because I think they are a pretty future-proof overall platform for flexibility. Doesn't mean you can't try any of these other platforms, but just keep that in the back of your mind that someday you may need to put down $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 to successfully migrate. your customer base over to a new platform and a new tech stack. And there's also intrinsic costs. Like that's the hard cost. There's also intrinsic cost that comes in by, customers not being able to get transferred properly. Things like PayPal subscriptions don't transfer really well platform to platform. There's just stuff like that that can end up, costing you down the road. So just get the advice of other people in the space when you're looking at your technology, and make the decision that's right for you.
Yeah, I totally agree, Evan. And I've seen a lot of cases like that where people have gone down a certain track with a particular platform, and then they've reached a point where, they can't go any further, where hasn't matured like they have, it doesn't offer the same feature set as some of the other competitors. And then, they have to spend that cost to migrate. So you definitely want to make a wise decision before you get in too deep, and asking, some other people that have done it is a great way to get feedback, for sure.
Yep.
Now, as we get ready to wrap things up, I wanted to see if you could highlight some examples of some e-commerce companies that you've either worked with or you're just familiar with in general that have implemented subscription commerce offerings, and what are some specific things that they did to achieve success?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of great brands here at Stealth, and so I would say all these brands that we work with at Stealth typically come to us with a subscription. I think that a subscription, maybe if I can sort of rephrase that question a little bit and say the characteristics you're looking for in a subscription business, if you're thinking about it or have implemented it, say from an e-commerce perspective to subscription commerce, we have like what we call internally here sort of our 5 criteria for finding product market fit with a subscription business, and these are sort of universal truths that we've developed here at Stealth. My business partner Brent literally went up into the mountains and thought about this for a few days and came back down and sort of looked at all the successful businesses we've been able to see. And one of the things out of the 5 things, or excuse me, I will go through these 5 things, is having a passionate audience. So that means that you have people that are really excited about whatever you're offering. So Meal at Home is a good example. We work with HelloFresh and a lot of they have several different brands. People are passionate about, say, Factor 75 is a highly keto and paleo meal at home company. So people have a passion for keto or paleo, and then they find a meal at home service that suits their dietary needs. Then you have people that were at Thrive Market because they have gluten issues or they want to shop organic. Boom, you have a passionate audience and you're delivering a product to them that makes sense. And that passionate audience also needs to be large, right? So you can have a passionate audience, use a dumb sort of cliche thing here, but underwater basket weaving, those people are incredibly passionate, probably not a very large audience. You're going to get a couple thousand customers with your, underwater basket weaving subscription box, but you're not going to be able to grow that customer base beyond that.
Yeah.
So that audience has also got to be large as well. You got to have a unique value prop. So this means like if you're going to be a Me Too, you got to still have something. And Me Too being like there's a lot of meal at home companies that do things differently. But if you're a meal at home company that say focuses on keto and paleo versus one that focuses on Whole30 diets, or one that just focuses on great, wholesome, like dense comfort food, like you got to have a uniqueness to it, and that value has to be there. They can't be paying more than they're paying in the grocery store. They have to find it inconvenience. You have to sell people on like, look, food gets delivered right to your door. How convenient is that? Like, and tell them about how much, and then like the food getting delivered to your door. Guess what? You save 2 hours a week in going to the grocery store. You get to spend more time with your family, save money in the process, eat better, win, win, win. And then the compelling unit economics. This is a tricky piece because you got to have a subscription business, sort of universal truth from what I see, to create a scalable, advertisable subscription commerce business. Gross product margins sort of delivered to the customer, not including your SG&A or even your advertising, delivered to your customer at about 40% or greater.
Okay.
If you're less than 40%, you're going to have a hard time carving out money for advertising. Okay. So you got to have, compelling unit economics or a path to get there. When you're starting out, you might be at 30 or 25% gross profit margins, but with volume, you get volume discounts, you get to buy more, you get to save more, you get shipping rate discounts, whatever. Find a path to that, sort of 40% or greater. 50 is great. Anything above 50, you're doing awesome. Mm-hmm. And then the last piece with sort of the number 5 here, but not ranked of importance, is it's got to solve a pain. It's got to make something. You got to have a customer that feels better or gets relief in their life by being on your subscription. So here's a good example. You hate going to the grocery store or you hate buying coffee at a major coffee company. Mm-hmm. So now coffee is delivered right to your door. Mm-hmm. Okay. Or coffee alternatives. You're like, we work with a brand called MUD WTR. Fantastic mushroom infused coffee alternative. Tastes great. You still get that kick in the morning, but now it solves the pain because instead of you being hooked on regular coffee, and now you're on a coffee alternative and it's delivered right to your door and competitively priced, fits all of that criteria. That's what you need to be, sort of the 5 things you need to be focused on that we see creates success almost every time with subscription businesses. Okay. If you're asking about an example of companies that have gone to subscription, it's hard to find a company that doesn't have some form of subscription these days. But the one of the easier models I would say is, obviously you have the behemoth that's Amazon releasing Prime some years ago. Prime is inherently a recurring revenue model that gets 90 or now 100 and some odd dollars of margin basically from everybody who's on it. And you look at the perks that they're doing, you get Prime Video and you have all these things, but you still got to pay for certain movies and certain things that are free in there. But that is all basically margin dollars from them. And when you're getting faster shipping just generally means things are getting bumped to the front of the line. They're not necessarily turning heaven and earth, but the value prop feels so strong, you got to have Prime. So them introducing that has just opened the door for other services such as expedited shipping, front of the line customer service, easy replacements of guarantees and warranties, things like that.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, Amazon being the whole behemoth here in the e-commerce, they're definitely a great example for sure. And not only with them as overall brands that are selling on Amazon, we're seeing this more and more. Mm-hmm. Where I get it all the time. I order different household supplies, and there's always the option to do the recurring
subscribe and save.
Yeah, yep. that actually is almost a default on a lot of the products. Like right when you go to it, it's defaulted at the subscribe and save, and then you have to kind of think twice.
You have to opt out of subscribe and save. That's true. Yeah,
you have to say, wait a minute, do I really need it? And then you have to opt out to switch it. So yeah, it is really huge. Well, Evan, it's been awesome. Thank you for sharing those 5 points. That's definitely those are definitely some key things that any e-commerce brand that's thinking about doing this needs to take heed to for sure. Lastly, before we let you go, I always like to switch gears here just so our audience can get to know you a little bit better. If you don't mind sharing one closing fun fact about yourself that you think we'd be interested to know.
I thought long and hard about this question. I think that the fun fact that I would want to throw out there is, this is self-promoting too, but I can say for certainty I've been involved in controlling over $1 billion in media spend collectively. Wow. From my time, from 20 years of experience, breaking that out to sort of roughly $50 million a year in different, broad, different control of it and influence of it. So that's a fun, self-serving, sort of professional fact. The other side, I would say, just a personal fun fact, is I did not graduate college and ended up jumping into this industry with only hopes and dreams and a good technical knowledge of the space, and just love seeing how it's grown over the past 20 years. So.
Gotcha. Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, Evan. First of all, $1 billion is definitely nothing to sneeze at. That's quite an accomplishment over the years to be able to have, manage that. And then, of course, you're not the only one that hasn't gone through college that has still gone on to be successful. I think the kind of key here is, as long as you have a passion and as long as you're motivated and you stay focused and set your mind to it, you can accomplish anything regardless of, your background or what type of education that you have. So that is some good stuff. Well, awesome, Evan. Well, it's been awesome talking to you. And lastly, before we let you go, if any of our listeners want to reach out to you and pick your brain any more about subscription e-commerce, what's the best way for them to reach you?
So you can reach out to me at evan@stealthventurelabs.com. That's my direct email address. Also find me on LinkedIn. I haven't been too prophetic on LinkedIn as far as dropping knowledge, but I'm working on that. But feel free to reach out. Always jump in my email there and let me know. Or just reach out to us in general on stealthventurelabs.com, see what we're up to. We have a lot of one of our very exciting initiatives here is actually we opened up a 501c3 that's called our Impact Lab that you can read about on stealthventurelabs.com, focused on teaching young inner city kids how to launch their own website brand. And we're actually funding them $5,000 in advertising after they go through our academy to learn how to actually bring their product to life. So read more about that there. Reach out to us if there's anything that we can help with. I love talking about this stuff. I can babble on about this industry for hours. So,
well, I hear you. Well, thank you for sharing that. And you and me both. I can talk about e-commerce and the internet for just days and days. So, yeah, it's awesome to have another like-minded person on the podcast as well. Well, great. Well, I definitely encourage any listeners that are interested to reach out to you, check out you guys' website, Stealth Venture Labs. And, we definitely appreciate you coming on today, Evan, for the Ecommerce Marketing Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Ecommerce Marketing Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share it with everyone you know. Are you looking to take your digital marketing to the next level, but are tired of weeding through countless YouTube videos with unproven and untrusted marketing strategies? Well, we have the answer for you. The More Sales Every Month online digital marketing course. In this information-packed course, you will learn effective keyword research, link building, content marketing, and much more to attract and convert your site visitors into paying customers. Just go to moresaleseverymonth.com and sign up today for a low one-time fee. In addition to this power-packed course, if you would like to get access to a growing repository of digital marketing articles, PDFs, and ebooks, check out getosi.com/resources and opt in to get full access to our library of priceless marketing information to help you take your digital marketing to the next level.